There's a suit on and there's places to go.
Hey, Kujin.
Here we go. Happy April Fools. What do we got today?
We have an April Fool's themed episode because we're talking about Scharpling and Wurster's Rock, Rot, and Rule.
By David Thomas Klontel, is that his name?
Ronald Thomas Klontel.
Ronald Thomas Klontel. The one and the only Ronald Thomas Klontel. Do you want to give us...
Well, Ronald Thomas Klontel, as an author, has a certain grandeur. There's a bigger word for it. There's a certain... He gave to us, not just like the world, but more importantly to like the rock intellectual... How do you say that word? Intelligentsia.
Intelligentsia, yeah.
He gave to the rock intelligentsia the ultimate argument settler.
The ultimate argument settler. A coffee table flip book for all to settle any arguments they might have over which band rocks, rots, or rules.
A 98 page.
98 page.
98 page coffee table book, including the index.
Including the index for $25 back in when was it, the early 2000s? When was that?
This thing broadcast in 1999.
99, okay.
Yeah. So basically as the background, I came across it. I think that you and we passed books on to each other, and I think that I read Chuck Klosterman's book, The 90s, and I thought it was really great. Was that a book that I passed on to you?
I think you must have, because I definitely read it.
It's with you and me, it's like a book goes one to the other, and then it goes on to someone else, and then it winds up in Nebraska or Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah.
Right? It just gets circulated out in the ether.
Right.
But we wouldn't be able to do, I mean, in a sense, a lot of like the stuff that we talk about on our podcast dovetails or coincides with Klosterman's general work, but also that book, The 90s in particular. Chuck Klosterman brought up this thing that happened in 1999 where John Wurster and Tom Scharpling was the host on like a radio show, and I want to say it's like an independent radio station or public radio station or college radio station.
Wasn't it like WFMU or something like that?
Was that it?
I think it might have been. I could be wrong.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either. But when I heard the call letters, I was like, I feel like I've heard of it before, but that could just be because they all sound the same.
And Klosterman's deal was that he was like, this is one of the things you can investigate and you'll get an understanding of what was going on in the 90s, especially as it pertains to us in relation to people that are into music, playing music, collecting music, and like kind of a music aficionados. So basically the premise is that John Wurster, who's the drummer for Superchunk, is claiming to be Ronald Thomas Klontel, the author of a book called Rock, Rot, and Rule, which is the ultimate argument settler. And basically you pick up this book and you look up an artist, and the book will tell you if that artist rocks, if they rot, which is the polite way of saying sucks, or if they rule being the highest. And so now on the show, 1999, Ronald Thomas Klontel is having his moment in the sun, presenting his book to this discerning audience of, music aficionados. And then for 45 minutes, we get to hear the chaos and the fury that ensues. And it's comedic gold.
Published by Penguin, apparently. I gotta admit, when you sent it to me, for the idea of doing it, initially I was like, oh man, I don't know, like how I was a little hesitant, and then I finally put it on. And I was like, oh, this is hilarious. This is so good, especially mostly just because like what you said, everybody, all the people that called up were so mad. They were so mad at him they have no idea that they were not in on the joke at all, and they would call up and they'd just be like, how could you say that fucking Led Zeppelin was the rots or whatever. I can't remember who he said how he classified the bands, but he was really I do. I remember he was claiming that Madness was
Created ska.
created ska. And people got so mad. I was impressed that like people were calling up being like, actually, how could you say that? I was like, wow.
Well, even wait, on that note though, at the end, remember the guy that's gonna like start arguing with him about craft work. I think it's that guy, and Wurster's like, not another ska argument. Like he's even tired of it because he's had like 4 straight people call and argue with him about ska, and he sticks to his character so well because building off the idea that Madness invented ska, he refers to No Doubt as second wave ska.
Yes.
And it's like, if you think about it, this is why it's kind of fits in with Klosterman's including it in the book, and then also just that whole end of the Gen X thing and the end of the 90s. It's like, in a sense, if you look at the War of the Worlds thing was kind of like, that was maybe the silent generation sort of, or maybe the boomers. That was their version of a really that was like how they responded to like a radio prank. And this is like the Gen X version of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
a bit lower stakes. Nobody was actually afraid for their lives, like apparently War of the Worlds and the world coming to an end. But yeah, the Gen X version, that it fits, right?
And the Gen X version, in a sense, arguing about the first wave ska, second wave ska, Kraftwerk, whether Stereolab used guitars on their first 3 albums, that is kind of like more of a life and death.
That's a fair point. I guess it's pretty fitting. Do you remember any of the Rock Rotten rulings?
Oh, because I listened to it again last night. I've listened to it twice since we agreed to do this, and I listened to it again last night, yesterday, because I was exhausted. I went to the I Hate God show and I was just beat. I couldn't do anything, so I basically watched some Ahmed Zappa videos, and then I re-listened to that. I was struck again by Bruce Hornsby ruling, because remember, he's giving the specification that if you're going to rock, you have to play guitar, but you can rule without guitar, and that's what Bruce Hornsby does.
Right. And but also he was contradictory though, because he didn't like jazz. Like he basically rotted any jazz that was brought up, except for
jazz as a genre was rotted.
But then he rocked, or he ruled Herbie Hancock.
Yes, I think Herbie Hancock ruled.
Yeah. There you go. Fucking Ronald Thomas Clontel not being very goddamn. He's not really. He needs to tighten up his shit, man.
The guy. So basically, that guy, the dude. I think it's the same dude, because there's a guy who calls 3 times.
Right.
And the guy that and it's on his 3rd call where he starts the phone call out saying, "I'm sorry, I'm still angry," and I think he's the guy that mentions the jazz players, and Clontel says Herbie Hancock rules, and then at the end, I can't remember who the last guy is. It's also a jazz guy, and he says he rules, and then the guy, he's like,
brought it up.
Look, he's like, you contradicted yourself, and Clontel says, yeah, but I said Herbie Hancock ruled too. So he's conscious of doing it. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that's really impressive about Scharpling's deal, is he just has to be. Scharpling's great because he's really bemused and then pretending to be like agitated with the guy, but Wurster, he's so on his game, and he never slips out of character, and he's really fast about it. I mean, there's not really any discrepancies in the role that he's playing as this authoritative author.
Yeah, I was impressed that he could keep it up for over 40 minutes.
So he basically says that, like, he came up with it because, like, he was with his friends and Nirvana came on MTV and they had this dispute. So then he was at the coffee shop he works at called Java the Hutt in Lawrence, Kansas, and he basically polls people, and if they don't agree with his assessment, he has like a 45-minute struggle session with them. And then he went to visit his grandmother in Gainesville, Florida, to extend his research.
That's so stupid. He's such an idiot. God damn it. I just want to know how did they think of this? Like, what the hell?
I think if you look at the stuff that was coming out, right? So Pulp Fiction was a movie that did a lot of kitschy stuff. It reintroduced a lot of Al Green, things like that. You had this thing that was going on in the 90s. If you look at Wayne's World, was bringing back Bohemian Rhapsody. You look at Pulp Fiction, brought back a lot of this kitschy kind of music. Reservoir Dogs did it too. And then finally near the end, you actually had movies like High Fidelity, Empire Records, which I think was more of a glossy teeny bopper kind of movie. But yeah, High Fidelity was definitely a movie that was catering to the sensibility that would drive Wurster and Scharpling to creating this sort of prank.
Right.
You know, we're looking at it like 26 years later, and it's kind of weird if you think about it now. Would somebody be able to make like a movie about working in a record store and having all the sort of hipster, for lack of a better word, conversations about music and things like that? I don't think we've really seen stuff like that in the cultural landscape in at least like 10 years yet. In the mid to late 90s, everywhere that was a thing. Reality Bites had that. Singles had that. You know, that was a part of the thing. And there's certain media that came out that was kind of featuring these sort of Ronald Thomas Clontal characters. You know, like Ethan Hawke's character in Reality Bites is kind of like a rich man's Ronald Thomas Clontal. You know, he's kind of a know-it-all. People, they were these hipster arbiters of what was good and what was bad and what was to be sort of revived in the culture, like 70s sitcoms, certain esoteric music things, and what was to sort of be mocked and trashed.
Right.
And we don't really I mean, we go to record stores, we can find a little bit of that now, but I think that that's something that its heyday was the late 90s. So this episode was really very prescient in that it was picking up on what was going on in the culture and mocking it. And it was also a product of that aspect of the culture. It was, the 90s was a very self-aware decade and a lot of irony, but it was also very generous, which we don't really have anymore. So you have self-awareness and you have self-irony, or you have self-awareness and you have irony, which are, you know, can be kind of bad. But there's a generosity where lots of things were allowed to sort of come back and be popular. I don't think we have those things really anymore.
The commodification of the unearthing the old and bringing it back for the strict purpose of just figuring out a way to make money off it, as opposed to doing what it felt like, at least before, which is naturally coming back through art. I don't know how true that is, but that's how it feels.
I think you mean naturally coming back through people's interest.
Yeah, people's interest, but through arbiters, like people within a certain art forms, bringing it back, kind of reintroducing it, and then people going, "Oh yeah, that's cool," and then it like becomes a thing. I don't think it. Do you think what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did Tarantino's tastes sort of ignite something that was simmering, or was he aware of something and using it to his advantage? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like I sort of my inclination is that he's just sort of a nerd like that, and because he does it in all of his, or he did it in all of his early movies, where he would just sort of like use the music that he loved or the certain things that he loved, and then like the culture would sort of get ignited through it and turn into this thing.
But in a certain respect, though, in regards to what you're saying, there has to be a certain general receptivity for that. I can't think of anybody now, but you could have had somebody doing this like in the mid 80s. The seeds would not have fallen on like fertile ground. They would have like fallen on concrete and not grown. Tarantino's thing worked because he was doing a lot of these obscure, a lot of this relates to the Jeff Buckley episode we had, because we were talking about how Jeff Buckley had that crate digger obscure thing, Lilac Wines, a Nina Simone song, and these other things. He's bringing them back, and it's at the time where the culture's ready. It's receptive to these obscure things. So I don't think Quentin Tarantino, through sheer force of his will, was able to do that, but the culture was receptive to it, and he was one of the people who was really doing it at the time.
Right. It still sort of happens on a grosser scale now with like TikTok and stuff, like the younger generation.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bash it, because kids in their teens and 20s are discovering music that they've never heard of, and they're getting all excited about it. All the stuff that we grew up listening to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But which is great. But for some reason it feels like now, when culture sort of turns back the clock, it feels not forced, but it just feels nefarious for some reason, more nefarious than it used to.
There's the thing that I was thinking of. I don't know if this relates sort of to my hot take. My hot take, I don't think, is very good. But I think one of the things that's interesting about the people's reaction to Klontal is there's this kind of outrage that he's doesn't have the authority to make these pronouncements. Like now I think in relation to what you're talking about, everything's kind of more viral. People wait till, like, Pavement had like that song. I don't even know which one it was. It was kind of an obscure sort of Pavement tune, and it made this big revival on TikTok. It's a viral thing. Whereas I think in the 90s, people were still looking for people that had a certain authoritative weight to what they were, to who they were, to make these pronouncements.
Yeah.
Because if you think about like like I said, there's characters in movies of that time. The Ethan Hawke's character in Reality Bites is the one that kind of comes to mind, but there's got to be others in even more obscure films where there's like a certain character who's just really cool and kind of gets to make these sorts of pronouncements about what's cool, what should be revisited, and what should be left behind culturally.
Do you have a spicy take on something this week?
My spicy take, I don't think, is that good.
Mine was pretty weak last week, so it's okay.
No, I thought yours was good though, because I didn't see that coming.
Let's do the spicy take anyway. Here we go. We're gonna do the spicy take. What's the spicy take?
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Can you subject Rock Rotten Rule itself to the criteria of Rock Rotten Rule? because the pretense, that's just like Bertrand Russell. He demolished Frago with that. But it's like, because the pretense of Rock Rotten Rule is that Rock Rotten Rule rules. Right? I mean, and looking back in hindsight, the reason it's still around, the reason that people pressed it onto vinyl, like it's on vinyl, you can buy it on Discogs. This thing that we listen to on YouTube, we can go and buy that on Discogs.
That's crazy.
It rules. That's testament to it. It's ruling.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or rulership to quote Kant.
All right. So, can you argue with that? You can't argue with pressed vinyl, man.
It's so crazy that people, but it's an infinite loop, because now look, it happened in 99, and then in 2014 people started pressing it on vinyl so that you could be hanging out with your friends and be like, check this thing out from 15 years ago, and you put on a record like you were listening, like you were trying to turn them on to Nina Simone. Or like some obscure stuff on vinyl. It has the same currency, sort of like to what your point is. You can't argue with vinyl. You come over to my house, I put on a vinyl copy of Rock Rotten Rule, and you're like, I can't believe this. And after like 25 minutes of him arguing with callers, you flip it over and there's 20 minutes more.
All right, well then let's do our own ultimate argument settler version of Rotten Rule. I'm just gonna throw out some obscure names from different eras, and I want you to give me the Rotten Rule. And then if I agree, I'll go on. But if I'm not sure, I'm gonna press you, and then I want you to tell me why.
One premise that was so great about it is he's constantly referring it to the ultimate argument settler, and people keep arguing with that fact too. You're causing arguments.
All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, rot or rule. Thomas Dolby of She Blinded Me with Science fame.
He rots.
Rots.
All
right. Rockwell, Somebody's Watching Me.
Rot. These are really good. You're impressing the hell out of me right now. I want to just say
that. Tony Basil, Mickey.
That rocks.
This is the 80s version, by the way. Hold on. Men Without Hats.
But it rocks.
Men Without Hats.
Is that the Safety Dance?
Safety Dance.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that rules. The Safety Dance, at least that song rules.
He's got the Bumblebee little guy. I mean, how can you go wrong with that?
You could dance. Everybody look at their pants.
Everybody look at their pants. All right. Kaja Gugu, Too Shy.
I don't think I know that one well.
Yeah, you do.
What would Contel say? I don't know it.
I don't know it. Yeah, I don't know it. All right.
I don't know television. I don't know him.
Bobby McFerrin.
Oh, that rots. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, all right. We're going to go to the 90s version now. 90s version. Ready?
Yeah.
Chumbawamba.
That rots, man.
Rots. All right. Marcy Playground.
Sex and Candy rules.
Rules. New Radicals.
That rules, dude. That rules harder than anything you mentioned so far.
New Radicals. Harvey Danger.
Rot.
Yes. Primitive Radio Gods.
Out of principle, it rots. I don't know how I feel about it. I put them on a 90s playlist, but it's nothing to be celebrated.
All right. Semisonic.
Rocks.
Fastball.
There's a song called Fire Escape by Fastball that rules. But the song The Way, that just rocks. But that song Fire Escape by them, that song rules.
I also like The Way too, man. It's a great fucking
It's a good song. It's a good song, yeah.
All right, fine.
I said it rocks.
All right. So the Verve Pipe.
Oh, you know what, dude? I can't stand that one song that was a hit. That album's not too bad. I'm gonna say rot, but not like I'm really gloating about them rotting.
All right. Last but not least, Len, that song Steal My Sunshine.
Dude, do I have to say it? You know what it is. Say what I'm gonna say.
Rule?
No, you It rots.
Man, I tell you what. Even being on the giving end of that gave me stress. I don't know how that dude did it for 40 some odd minutes. Just
I'm gonna ask you some general ones.
All right,
the Bee Gees.
All right, the Bee Gees rock.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I don't know. John Denver.
Oh God, I'm gonna say rock because he's lame, but he's so lame that he's kind of cool. So I'm gonna say rock.
Okay, I know what you're gonna say to this next one, the Velvet Underground.
Fuck them, rot. That's what I'm gonna say. Yes, you know why? I'm gonna take a 90s Gen X stance on those guys because
I am really excited to hear this.
All right, so they've had this like revival over the like I've had friends, younger friends, who are like, oh, fucking these guys are so good, bro, and it's just because they're a bunch of fucked up fuck ups. That's the reason. And it's also like and that justifies their ability to go get fucked up and play in a band when it's also like, oh, dude, it's just you're so lame, dude. Don't be lame. I mean, they're fine. I'm not saying they're not good. I gotta take a stance and put them in the rock category just for the type of influence that they're giving to the youth.
I can't argue with you there, buddy. LCD Sound System.
He rules. I'm not even a huge fan, but he rules.
Beach Boys. That was none of the above for Contel.
None of
Beach Boys for you What do you
Yeah,
say?
I'm liable to agree, dude. I don't
That's
know.
interesting.
I don't
And
know.
then the Flaming Lips. That's my last one.
Rule. Wait. Rule everything pre war with the Mystics. Rule everything
I
post.
kind of agree with you on that one.
Yeah, everything post. I'm not a fan of. But and I will say the reason the Beach Boys I decline is because it's too chaotic. Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the touring? Because apparently live they were the shittiest band you ever seen, but in the studio with their genius at the helm, the best. So it's hard to know how to grade those guys. I'd say they're
Yeah, I think when you're doing it in the true rock rotten rule fashion, which was actually a very exciting segment, I want to say. Like this, I think this was and it really fire 5 minutes for us. But I think when you're talking about the rock rotten rule, you have to do the cumulative thing. I don't think you get because remember, you're just on a table. You got the band name, and then you got the decision, and that settles the argument. So you're going to have to weigh the pros and cons of the Beach Boys. You're talking about the live shows. You're talking about some really spotty 80s albums. If you're saying that they rock or rule in spite of those things, then you're letting all the good things outweigh the bad. There's a really deep meditative Zen aspect to the rock rotten rule thing that we've just uncovered here, bro.
They should. Then in that case, I'm gonna reinsert my statement and give you an answer on the Beach Boys strictly because of Kokomo. They get a rot. They will rot forever in hell for ever making a song like that, and they're
I like
never.
that song.
You would.
Yeah, I would.
I would. Well,
Well,
sir.
it's funny you can do this with anything because we could do it with the Beach Boys, but then I could say to you like, "Help me, Rhonda," and you'd probably be like, "That rocks."
Yeah, that's a pretty good song.
Yeah,
All
or
right.
Heroes and Villains is. I'd say that song rules.
They got a couple of songs that rule. I'll admit. It's just offensive for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why. Anyway, I feel like this was a success.
I think this was a really successful April Fool's episode.
All right, well, let's squeeze in our homework assignment. First and foremost, let's go. Let's double back to last week's homework assignments.
It's homework time.
I'm gonna go first, and I'm gonna give. It's gonna be 10-point system on specific categories: songwriting, lyrics, production, album construction, and then the overall score. Not to make
Each one is up to 10.
Each one is up to 10. So my homework assignment was This Is Hardcore by Pulp. This Is Hardcore by Pulp. I got to say, I wasn't expecting much because it was the guys that do Common
People.
And I do not like that song. But I will.
It's okay.
Yeah, what? I'm not going to die on that hill. But I will say, This Is Hardcore was very pleasing, very, very fun. I really, really liked it. The ultimate song on the album for me was Help the Aged. That song.
That's good.
That song was so good, dude. I listened to it so many times. So I'm gonna give it on the songwriting category. I'm gonna give it an 8. Lyrics, I'm gonna give it a 9. Production, I'm gonna give it an 8. Album construction, I'm gonna give it the lowest score. I'm gonna give it a 5 because it was over an hour long. And by the end, and the last song on the album was one of the better ones. I was just like, dude, you could have put that song a little bit earlier and cut like 3 or 4 songs. Because I also felt like the back end of the album, like the art of making out of album construction is that if you've got a bunch of songs that you need to put on the album,
yeah,
basically what you got to do after, like, say, okay, all these songs we want to go on the album, pile it all into one pile, and then from there you go, okay, how many of these songs are fulfilling the same fucking purpose as the best song in that category? Does that make sense? Like if you've got 4 songs that are kind of similar and they all fucking kill it, you don't really need 4 versions of the same song. You can get rid of 1 or 2, right? I mean, it's not like you can't release it. Anyway, I'll basically give an overall score of 7.5 for this album.
That's not bad.
It's not, right? I thought it was a fair score, especially for somebody who's never heard the album before.
Well, that's an album that I'd have a hard time cutting songs from.
I made myself get to the end without turning it off, and then I was like, and then I got to that last song, and I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, it just felt fresh and different than like the 3 or 4 that came before it. That sort of sounded, because he has like a formula. Do you know what I mean? He's got that like Nick Cave meets 70s Bowie formula that he does, like
A little bit, yeah.
filtered through a really sort of sarcastic tone. I don't know. I really enjoyed it a lot.
My homework assignment was by the band Of Love, and the album Buds.
Now this is obviously and I'll say you gave me like an epic band that has sort of like battle tested. This band, in my opinion, I accidentally found this album that I gave you, and it hit me in a way at a time that I was really into for some reason. I don't even know why, but I think they've only got like 3 albums under their belts in that time frame that we've both talked about, where it's just like it's bereft of impressive rock and roll. So I was curious to see what you thought of this.
Yeah, so and it's not a super long album.
No.
So I basically, I think what I did ultimately was I listened to it about 2.5 times, because one of the times, I think the first time I listened to it, certain songs after they finished, I would replay it. So it was a band where I was very unfamiliar with what they were doing songcraft wise, like what was going on. And it was, so to me, it was really like different, especially the first song. Like the first song is Baby Shia. And it was interesting because how I probably listened to that song 3 times. It's like, in a sense, what's musically happening is very repetitive, but it's almost as if it's not like you have this whole long verse and then that verse gets repeated later. It's almost as if the measures that make up the verse repeat themselves multiple times within the verse. And then the thing that I realize is that the guitars and bass and stuff, they're doing the repetitive thing, whereas the drumming is kind of breaking out of the repetitive thing. And then on certain tracks, the vocal is breaking out of the repetitive thing. That I can't explain it any other way. That's a few of the songs. The first 2 especially struck me. That the song that was really standout for me was The Wishing Well.
Great song, right? I knew you would like it. I
like that song a lot.
Yeah, that song, I heard it and I was like, this is good. This is good. It's definitely the best track.
It was a thing, and it made me think, because I was like, there has to be bands that are antecedents for this. And I asked, like, because I don't do Chat GPT, Gemini's what's on my phone because I have an Android, I guess. So, and it's like Built to Spill and Dinosaur Jr. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. There's something else. I was like, Sunny Day Real Estate, maybe. And I listened to some Sunny Day Real Estate, and I was like, okay, I kind of see. I don't know them really, but I was like, it was really foreign thing to me. It wasn't totally like my cup of tea, because you know how the certain things I'm over here defending Kokomo, right?
Right. No, yeah, well, that's why I gave it to you. I was curious because I think it did that. I think the reason I found it so interesting was because it's not something that I generally would listen to, and for some reason I remember I was going on long runs and it just came up somewhere on I don't know if it was Spotify or whatever, and I was like, well, this is interesting, and I don't really know why I'm into it right now, but I was curious to see how it would hit you because I knew it would be coming from even further left field for you.
Yeah, it was. And it's weird too, because, you know, you and me, like, there was stuff that we'll talk about, and, you know, I listen to black metal and then the weird experimental stuff, but then you throw something like this at me and I'm like, I don't know exactly what's going on here. I'm trying to figure it out, you know?
That's great. I think that's good. Even if it's not a high score, I think it's interesting that they were able to do that to you because
I like that. So I want to say the first thing we're talking about is songwriting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay,
It's not totally my cup of tea, but it was something that made me, let's say 7.5, because it got me really curious as to what set up the antecedents for this.
That's a generous score.
What's the next thing?
Lyrics.
Lyrics I wasn't super impressed with.
Yeah.
I'll go with like a 5 on that.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, are we talking production?
Production.
I'll give him an 8.
Oh,
I think it's recorded well. I guess production if it fits, or production if it's good. I'm generous about production. I'll be like an 8 on that. And then overall album construction, I'm gonna go with like a 7, because it's like, I don't think that there's anything that you would or should cut from it. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but it seems it seems to work for what's going on. So the thing I appreciate about you suggesting it was just the fact that it really did get my wheels turning for a couple days, listening to it, re-listening to it, trying to figure out what was going on, trying to figure out what the antecedents were for it, and then kind of being impressed here and there with some of the things that they were doing, you know, where you're like, okay, this is like super repetitive, but then the vocals are kind of like floating above this repetition. That was something that struck me. And like I said, the Wishing Well song I thought was really good. I marked that out as being like, yes, this is a really, like, I put it on playlists. So that's whatever my overall score, I guess, is about like a 6.5.
That's a perfect score for this album, I think. That's good. Because this is this 1 to 10 scale too. If you can get to 6, I'm impressed.
Well, you know what? I want to tell you, I'm really upset about something. And it's so funny because right before you called me, I did the thing, dude. I Googled the Rock Rotten Rule. The first thing that pops up is a review for the record on Pitchfork.
Oh, no. Don't look.
Without remembering, I clicked on it and the score is fuzzed out. And I was like, it was just sheer habit, dude.
No, dude. Those jerk-offs. Don't click on Pitchfork anymore, man. For your own health and safety and welfare.
But they reviewed Ronald Thomas Clonto's album, bro.
All right, well, shit. Let's
give me the homework assignment for next week, and I'll give you mine.
Homework assignment. Soft Airplane by Chad Van Galen. I'm really excited to get your take on this one.
I'm going to give you something that I was going to give you something more up your alley, but then I got to go for my first run today since my surgery. I only did about 3.5 miles, but it was good. I was listening to music and a song from this album popped up and I'm like, I'm going to assign this to the Cougene over here.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to like it, but it's Ron Wood's album called I've Got My Own Album to Do.
All right. Yeah. Well, see, now these homework assignments aren't necessarily to cater to the taste of the person that you're giving the homework to. So I think this is good. It's to broaden horizons, to strip us bare of all the things that we carry around and make us see the light in certain places where there is only darkness, sir.
Well, it's like that's the mission statement of the Mixtape Hotline. It's to broaden horizons while simultaneously being the ultimate argument settler.
The ultimate argument settler. For Steve from the Happy Casualties, this is Nick from Petrov the Hero saying, forget about it, but don't forget about us.
Because we rule.
The matter with you? You were just standing there in the hall the next day, the way you always are, and you heard the girl